Greetings and salutations, one and all. It's Robert Phoenix. We're back here for another edition of the Astro Weather. And hope everybody is rising and shining wherever you are. And if you're not rising and shining, I hope you're just shining. Just keep on shining. We apparently it was Julie's birthday on Saturday. I don't want Julie to miss out on the birthday song. It's not a canonical, classic, epic, but I do think that Julie will appreciate this this birthday greeting. A bit after the fact, but nonetheless, we celebrate the big cat lady with a little cat birthday. Here we go. This is for Julie Sunshine. There you go. Short and sweet. That's how it's done. Happy birthday, Julie. Belated. All right, let's do a quick little name check here. Who do we got in the house? DJ MC batting leadoff for your Oakland A's. Mike would prefer if I said now batting leadoff for your Los Angeles Dodgers. DJ Sister Nino. Pedrita Pebbles. Look at this. Good morning, lovely people. I'm back from a lovely time in DJ tour in Portugal. Can't really say I'm happy to be back, but happy that October is right around the corner and I'll see you all. Yeah, we got an international DJ coming to our event in October. And then this sad piece of information that followed. After this trip, I saw how I don't want to really live in this country anymore. I can understand how you feel. Portugal has always interested me. I love Spain. I really love Spain. Of course, Portugal is kind of part of Spain. Deborah Wheeler, what's happening? Excellent show with Russ. Thank you. I thought it was a good show as well. And Russ is fearless, man. Russ is just such a fascinating case of somebody who woke up. Right? Like he woke up. Russ was a liberal at one time. And then he wasn't. So there you go. The great Liddy Lou in the house. What's happening? Misbehaving too? Lisa Dawn T. Seguin. She's with the cash of the mashup. Janice Phillips. The Wildcat from Oklahoma. Christina Jerzik. Greetings. Christina. Good to see you. There she is, the lovely and talented one, saving Austin one tooth at a time. Kabuki Theater. Hey, Bo. What's happening? T. Jordan checking in. Might be in the sunroom today. He and Jasper might be hanging out in the sunroom. Let's see what's Charlie. Charlie. There's my man Ryan. What's happening? Orlando. Do I have any coffee left? Oh, I have one last sip. This is for Orlando. Wasn't the sip of the day, but it was close. Yes. Sign up, become a member of Robert's 11,000 Locals. I'll tell you why you want to do that. Is because there was a chart today that I was going to do as the star of the day, but it is very controversial. And there are things that I would say about that chart that could land me in hot water. So I am going to break that chart down over on Locals. And you're going to want to see it. So you can sign up. There's stuff that I do for everybody. And then there's stuff that I do for members. So on Saturday, we had a members only event, right? Where I was going through basically from here to the election. And so I'm going to try to do one of those per month. I may do every now and then like something for everybody, right? Because I want, it's great if you become a member and support, the show. This is really kind of what you're doing, but and that's great. And I want to make sure that everybody gets some content too. So I have a chart. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I am going to put it up on locals because I can't talk about it here. Let's just leave it at that. Queen Lisa, she's in the house. Oh, Charlie, this is newsworthy. Big day for me, my first colonoscopy. Well, congratulations. I hope everything comes out well. Turns out well. Lives Outdoors. What's happening, Lives Outdoors? Yes, indeed. You can buy me a coffee over there. Right there. The link is at Thank You, Ryan, which is in the chat box. It's in the text for the show. And that is because I have been demonetized from YouTube since the 2010s. I'm an OG demonetizer. The law has arrived. Lisa Ann White. Hi, Lisa. Maya. Hands yellow, heart red. Good day, all. I love that. Good to see you. Jackie Delario. The Empress is in the house. Taking care of herself. Sharon Lewis. Hi, Sharon. Siegert. Good day from Rwanda Richmond Learning Silo 7B. My shock collar feels extra snug today. Oh my God. I can't even wrap my head around what's happening in England. And then I guess you have to have just the most ultimate dark sense of humor to get through. Look, how far is the rest of the planet behind? Not far. Not far. I had a really interesting and great comment on the Sunday night show. There's a guy who I've been talking with, through Twitter kind of over the last couple of years. He's a really interesting character. He's on Twitter. His name is Gaza Robinson. And he has a book out on, I believe, Roulette Press, if I'm not mistaken. Very highly regarded publisher. And it's a really high level book at like the Surveillance Society. And he's originally from England. I think he's moved out of England. And he sent me this DM on Twitter. And I could talk about it because it's public stuff. And he told me that it's a very interesting story. Like, this guy's really interesting. He went from being one of the most hardcore soccer hooligans and in one of the most hardcore hooligan groups to becoming a PhD. And very interesting dude. And we're talking about getting him on the show, and he can tell his story. And so he's lived this life from being on the front lines of, English life, right, to like having to reassess his relationship with that country. And one of the things that he said in the email, in the text, he says, this all started about 20 years ago, and the immense amount of psychological pressure that certain people were feeling at that time. So if we go 20 years back, right around 2000, 2004, when things really started where the vice grip started to get tighter. And he said that period of 20 years ago was this pressure cooker. And then eventually he realized that he couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, I'm going to try to get him on the show. He's a really interesting character. Siegert, if you don't know his work, you may want to track him down. Let's see. There she is, the Queen of Speed, Nora Rashid, rocking down the highway. Healing Heart Rosie, feeding apples in the orchard. Sounds like fun. Yes, please come sign up. Sign up for the event. I did a live yesterday with Mario of Symbolic Studies. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to put it up on this channel at some point today. It's a great conversation. And I love how Mario comes at material. He hits it with a 40,000 foot view. Towards the end of it's a 2 hour talk. And towards the end, we get into this whole Gemini thing with George Floyd. And he knew some of the things, like he knows about the George Floyd and Stephen Jackson and the twin stuff. And then I brought him into a lot of the other Gemini twin symbolism. But he also went into a really interesting place. And he talked about like the age of Gemini and the creation of bricks, right? Like there's this thing that's connected with Gemini and bricks, and it has to do with like the bricks being able to dry out in the sun and to harden and take shape and form. And so, of course, what was the calling card of the summer of 2020 was bricks. So it's a really interesting exchange. Mario's like 40,000 foot view. He's fantastic. And you're going to love the chat that we had. He's going to be at the event. So we're going to have Mario from Symbolic Studies. We've got DJ Pebbles, and I'll be there. Chattari is going to be there. Darlena Watson, who a lot of you are studying human design with, she'll be there on Sunday. And I might work out another thing, maybe. So it's in the process. And guess what? You will be there. You will be there, and you're the star of the show as well. Let's see. Oh, look at Nora. She's such a support gal. At Charlie, have fun getting lubed. Oh, I'm sorry, tubed. I did my first one last month. It was a breeze. There you go. Let's see. Perspectivized. What's happening? Your love, the immortal. Your love, the immortal. Kelly B's here. There's my man, Steve, by the door. Amy Gill's in the house. Veronica's barn. Miss Nikki. Moira in New York. Raining. Oh, good morning. Rain holding off here in the Big Apple. Okay. Oh, he looks like my cat, Ralphie. That's a good name for a cat. Claire. Hi, Claire. That cat gave me a ripple, right? I was thinking the same thing. It was like, man, that cat's from a different time. That old video's from a different time. Katie Barton, that was perfect. Barbara Boots in the house reporting from Virginia. Harris has picked walls. I guess she's looking for the mother. She can't take what's his name? Josh Shapiro. He's got IDF blood on his hands. Can't take him. Can't take him. I guess she's looking for the Muslim vote. Well, if she's looking for the Muslim vote, she should have taken Rashida Tlaib. Let's see. I get it. He's the governor of Minnesota, right? So okay. I remember back in, what was it, 2012, the big presidential race between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. And Mitt Romney's vice presidential candidate was Paul Ryan. Remember that? Paul Ryan. And of course, Obama's VP was Joe Biden. And they were having a debate. And it was the night of the Oakland A's playoff game against the Detroit Tigers. And me and my kid were diehard A's fans. We'd been to I think 7 games that year, and they didn't lose one game, right? Like we were on the A's roll. It was the A's wave. And so we go to this really good pizza place. in Berkeley. Good pizza, craft brews. Okay, we're gonna watch the game. We're gonna watch the game. So we go to this place, and they have the fucking debate on. I'm like, what are you doing? Like the A's are in the fucking playoffs, and you have this stupid ass debate on. Oh, this is one of the most important debates in history. Really? These two guys are clowns. Like, get the fucking game on. And he's like, oh no. So then, okay, so you have to realize that Berkeley is filled with liberals, right? So they're there in the little liberal groups, the liberal pods, you know. And there was this one guy, and apparently there's some other people there that wanted to watch some other games, like were the A's. It was a Monday night game with, I think it's the first Monday night game of the year. Pittsburgh's on. They got fans all over the place. So this one older guy sitting down, like he's telling these guys to be quiet because he wants to watch the debate. And these young guys were like not having it. They'd had a few cocktails or beers rather. And one of the guys, because they were sitting close to each other, one of the guys takes his foot and kicks the guy's chair really hard, the old guy. And then the old guy got really up, So there's this whole fracas that like started to happen at this place. I mean, you just turn the fucking game on. Oh, it's important. Oh. Yes, please come to the event. There's the link right there. Please join us. We're going to have a great time. Jay Scheffler checking in from Tucson. What's up, Jay? If you're looking for a world-class Basenji, Jay is your connection. Right there. Misbehaving too. Lynn, think of please. I know that hole in the rock. Is that off the coast of California? No, it's not. I'd be like, where's Waldo? Or Carmen Sandiego. Hey, Maple. Cozumel. That's a Cozumel sunrise, baby. Oh, it would be nice to see that. It would be nice to just be there. Sunrise. A little bit of coffee. And you head out. Get some nice shrimp tacos. Oh, yeah. All right. Who else we have? Sweet Woodruff. Jolie. Hi, Jolie. Green Eyed Crow is here. Mary Grether. Mary. Ex-liberals quite rightly have that extra canister of bile to distribute. Referring to Ross. Right. It's all pent up. A lot of discharge. Guy Vance is here. Love and hugs. Karen in New Zealand. Love you Friday show. David's awesome. New Courageous Truths. Oh yeah. Oh well, hey man. Shout out to David, the man David Palmer. The Leo King. Scott Jersey's in the house. Hey Scott, good to see you. Terry Marine, an OG, she's here. Mary B. Big point today with cardio. Finding out if I'm AFib or heart is failing and why I'm skipping beats. All right, Mary Lee. We'll keep you in our thoughts. You're going to be just fine. Just fine. Clears to that birthday twin. Prayers to that birthday twin. Okay, there you go. Prayers to that birthday twin. Let's see. Who else we have? Sorsh. Sorsh is here. Hi, Sorsh. Good to see you. People I think are doing okay. Lovely background. That was Cozumel. Missed you all Sunday. Feel out of sorts. Well, we missed you too. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Kelly's just back from walking the pups. KZ Gypsy Muse. Let's see who else we have here. Sorsha. Sorsha. Got it. Thank you. Sorsha. And Sorsha. Sorsha. Let's see who else. Scrubbies with the name check. What's going on? Ms. BC. Hello, Ms. BC. Who else? Brandy Herrera, the Road Warrior. She's checking in. Oh, yeah, I will be on Quite Frankly tonight. We're going to be talking Richard Nixon, one of my favorite politicians of the 20th century. Miss BC says, so glad to be done with you. This feels so much safer in the Southern Hemisphere. Completely understand it. Completely. Is there even much of a Muzzy vote in America? That's a really good question. I think there's a concentration of Muslims in Minnesota and Michigan. It's like, hey, let's take Muslim people who live in really dry, arid parts of the world and stick them up in the coldest fucking parts of the United States. That's a really great idea. There's a lot of Muslims in Austin, believe it or not. And I saw that happening in real time. In real time. Like when I was living in this apartment in Austin, this Muslim family moved in next to my apartment, but it wasn't your typical Muslim family. It was this young guy. I mean, he couldn't have been more than like 19 years old. And he had these, it was probably his siblings, and they were much younger than he was. And he was, and I may have seen a woman every now and then, but it was like he was running that apartment. And he was actually a really nice guy. Like he helped me up with some stuff one day. It was just one flight of stairs up, just unasked. It was like, he was really nice. And then I think it was, I don't know what prompted me to do this. Maybe it's my Scorpio rising. But so we have these mailboxes that we drive to in this apartment complex. It's like they're not by your apartment. You have to go somewhere, walk up to it, turn your key. But so the mail guy was there, and he was putting stuff in. And I was looking for something specifically. So the back of the mail truck was open, and I could see into the tray where they have the letters. And I noticed that there was a letter from the United States government, and it was made out to somebody who had like an Arabic name, and it was a check. I'm like, oh, because you know how like you can kind of see what checks are, you know how they look like. Oh, I see this. Okay, let's get into the weather. I don't want to spend too much more time. We have a lot to cover. Okay, so here we go. We're coming off that new moon, and it's kind of still newish. It's newish, and it is in Virgo, so we got a heavy dose of Virgo. Venus has moved into Virgo. When did that happen? I think Sunday. So we have Venus in Virgo, Mercury Virgo retrograde. So it's crawling backwards towards Venus. It's a lot of, hey, I'm sorry I've been so critical about your cooking. I'm sorry I've been so critical about your coffee. Your coffee's really good, honey. You remember those coffee ads? These were like really bad. And the husband saying, honey, what's wrong? Well, I have to wait to get to work to have a decent cup of coffee. Oh, honey, I just got a new coffee maker. But are you using the right coffee? Turns out that Jane wasn't using the right coffee until she found Hills Brothers. Once Jane found Hills Brothers, her husband Mike didn't want to run off to work to get that better coffee. Honey, that's some good coffee. I know. I headed to the hills. There you go. Yeah. This energy, man, it's like cat scratch fever. There are some sharp tongues, razor sharp tongues in the world today. People are feeling very, very defensive. Very defensive. Watch out. I mean, there's some good energy today, too. Don't get me wrong. Right. Sun, Jupiter sextile, pretty jolly. Right. Sun, sextile Mars. You know, there's that's like okay. So you have two choices today. You have two choices today. You can either practice joie de vivre, right, with that Sun, Jupiter, Mars sextile, like nothing hits you, right? Joie de vivre, or you can get caught in the weeds. It's your choice. Caught in the weeds or joie de vivre. I would take joie de vivre over caught in the weeds. So yesterday I was at the bank. I don't normally go to the bank, but I had to go to the bank yesterday, and I had to cash a cashier's check. And they actually believe it or not, this is a true story. They have to call the place that is issuing the cashier's check because they have to make sure it's not a forgery. And if there was a personal check that was made out for the same amount, they wouldn't do it. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy because if it was a personal check for the same amount, it might bounce on the other side, right? Versus the cashier's check, you would think would be legit. So I waited. I was there for maybe a half an hour to get this transaction done. Now, I could have got stuck in the weeds. Could have. But instead, I went for joie de vivre. And they said, oh, we're sorry it took so long. And I said, well, if it's going to take any longer, we'd probably have to all go out for drinks. And they all laughed and they thought it was very funny. One said, well, it is past 12, right? So anyway, it's either in the weeds or joie de vivre, your choice. Your choice. The big test is if somebody else is in the weeds, how do you respond to it? I would not suggest telling them to lighten up. It's like, how dare you? How dare you tell me to lighten up? How dare you? In terms of the big picture, man, razor sharp tongues. The political dialogue today, I mean, really over the next few days, right? The moon moving into a tighter square tomorrow, well, tonight and even tomorrow to some extent, with that square with Jupiter, with the moon in Virgo. It just makes everything harder, bigger, more painful. Oof. The invective, the back and forth, it's going to get very, very ugly. And this whole thing with Virgo is the higher moral ground. You look, who's going to have the higher moral ground? Who's going to have the higher moral ground? And that's just from a political standpoint, because of course, politics is the number one spectator sport in this country. I also feel like there's a lot of really nervous energy with all this Virgo, and people are not feeling real safe with their money. 401ks are taking a beating, right? And Gemini is like, well, what are my options? What are my choices? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? The walls are closing in, right? The options are starting to, get taken off the table, right? There's a lot of that very nervous energy. Try not to get caught up in it. It's easy to do, right? We all have the nervous button, the anal sphincter tighten button. What you don't want to do is get caught up in sort of the group dynamic and the group panic. So even in, like, theoretically the alternative world, or the astrological world, or the world that we float through, right? There's even the possibility in our world, and in fact, perhaps even more, for us to look at and interpret events and go, oh shit, here it comes. This is it. This is the other shoe. Like, do you remember how COVID felt? Like, I remember when COVID started to happen, I'm like, oh, here it comes. Here it fucking comes. I saw it in, in China, and the first case in Washington. Like, oh, shit. We got through it. We got through it. Just remember that. We got through it. And I'm somewhat convinced that we weren't supposed to get through it, but we got through it. And we will get through this as well. So there's a lot of, both signs are ruled by Mercury. So it's a lot of nervous, critical energy today. And, good luck with the media today. So you have an option. You get caught. You get caught in the drama. You get caught in the nervousness. Or you say, guess what? I am going to have a joyous, jocular, and good time. Right? I am going to be an agent of goodwill, good fortune. I am a free spirit. That is the most defining thing you can do, by the way. The most defining thing you can do in a time that demands ultimate conformity is to be a free spirit. And I'm not talking free spirit in the patented sense. I'm going to color my hair purple and I'm going to get a butt plug. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That is in its own way conformity, believe it or not. A free spirit says, I will not conform to the status quo. That is what I'm talking about. A little rock and roll. All right, what else do we have here? Venus trine Chiron. It's a really interesting trine. I mean, it's almost out of trine, but it is in trine. We've been seeing this for the last few days with Venus's arrival in the late degrees of Leo, early degrees of Virgo. I would say that this is an aspect where in relationship, people kind of offload, right? They're kind of offloading their pain. Right? If you get past, not to say that you have to be responsible for other, okay, here, let's reframe this. All right, so we got the Venus-Uranus square, and it's like an encounter that is kind of shocking. It's like, whoa, where'd this come from, right? You get past the shock level, and there's a really good chance that the interaction that happens thereafter can be healing. And maybe it's the other person that is kind of the walking wounded. Maybe you've been carrying a wound in some ways for that person, or a situation that's similar to that person. And Venus and Virgo, Virgo likes to fix things, and so there is the ability, right, to come in and say, well, maybe you should have some rescue remedy or something, right? But I think it's a really interesting square, but then you have the kind of the application of Venus and Virgo, which is, hey, let's discuss. And it feels to me like with Chiron, there's not a lot of agenda. And then we have this yacht today with Neptune and Pluto with Venus, and that's really, really interesting. So pay attention to your interactions with others today. And if you can get kind of past the first wave of either discomfort or strangeness or awkwardness, right? Something can resolve itself. Now, you don't have to fix anything. Just remember that. You don't have to fix anything. If somebody is engaged with you and they're asking you for your point of view, opinion, if they're asking you for your forgiveness, whatever, then it's a bit of a different story, right? You go, okay, well, I'm glad we're having this conversation, right? And it's a really interesting. Venus is in a really interesting position today. I think from a bigger picture, like we're looking at this from a collective space, pay attention to what's happening with things like food or food supply, GMOs, mRNA, all the things that they are doing the slow creep with, right? Pay attention to what's happening in that world, because I would not be surprised if we see some very disturbing news on that front. Okay. Let's get into our story today. Bring up the banner. And I'm just going to go right into the old star today here. And you'll be able to see me in the window. So I have two fairly new products from our friend Chris. So this is the new version of the 19, which you've seen me take here on the show. And this one is called Solara. And it is CBD, CBDA plus CBD. It's 1,000 milligrams. And it is focus and create. Okay, right there. And then here we have Pure Nano CBG. And this is G22 Synapta, which is brain focus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my morning dose of 19. This is the new and improved 19. So it has that nice amber color. Right in my tongue. I'll tell you what. The original version of 19 is really good, and you really get the intense experience of the terpenes. What Chris has done here is, I think he's changed the blend a little bit, and you get the terpenes, but you're not getting like that terpene bite, like, because this is very medicinal. Like when you take this, you're having some medicine, right? And what he's done here is he's taken a bit of the edge off of that, so you're still getting it and a new improved quality and version of it. But I would say that the taste on Solara is, I would say it's better. Some people like that heavy terpene medicinal taste. Tomorrow, I'll have a little Synapta. So the whole idea here is with truehempscience.com, you type in 15MINS, any order over $100 more, you get a free goodie bag. $150 more, you get free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's truehempscience.com. Go visit the website. Help our friend Chris, who creates quality product. And he is a Main Street entrepreneur. And whether it's Chris or somebody in the community who makes soap or they have raw milk or whatever, we need to support our local people more than anything. All right, let's get into the start of the day. Today's start of the day is Kevin Mitnick. And some of you are asking, who the fuck is Kevin Mitnick? Well, Kevin Mitnick was probably the second most celebrated and also wanted hacker in the history of kind of the early days of computers. The other guy being Robert Morris, who had created, I think he created, he didn't create Stuxnet, he created a massive worm and virus. And they're from very different backgrounds. Robert Morris, Ivy League trained. Kevin Mitnick is a very strange character. And you can even see it in his chart. So he grew up in Van Nuys, and he was your typical nerd. I mean, he was the guy who had the shirt tucked out. He had the pocket protector, the whole nine, right? Very awkward. And one of his first hack jobs was riding around the bus on the LA bus system. And he saw that the bus driver would have one of those hole punches. And he would punch the transfers, or so you could go to the next bus. And he had apparently been rummaging around the trash in the bus station prior to that, and found a bunch of unused transfer slips. So he asked the bus driver, "Where can I get one of those?" Meaning a hole punch. And the bus driver told him. He went and got a hole punch. And he basically rode on the LA bus system for free, right? So that was kind of his first hack job. And he was not considered to be like super intelligent or super. I mean, he was one of these kind of middling, nerdy, awkward students until he got into a computer class. And once he got into a computer class, a different side of Kevin Mitnick started to show up. So in high school, he gets in and they start to learn. Now, apparently, this is kind of cool because they had computers at their high school. And there was a company who provided all the computers for the school. And so the teachers, basically teaching how to code, like really basic stuff. And Kevin Mitnick was much more interested on what was going on behind the scenes. And eventually he figures out how to get into the mainframe of the computer company that gave the school the computers. And this was like the second time he had done something that he should not have done in this class. And it's interesting because his teacher had the last name of Christ. And he kicks him out, right? He kicks him out. He says he's incorrigible, he's dangerous. So how did he get the password to get into the mainframe? He called the company, right? And he would do this again and again and again. He would pose as certain people on the phone. And he would say, "Hey, we forgot the password down here. Can we get it?" And that's how he would hack into these systems. Now, eventually, he had other ways and means of doing this. But he became this incredible nuisance. So let's take a look at his chart. Gemini rising, right? So he has two names, right? Kevin Mitnick is his birth name, and then his self-appointed name is Condor because of the movie. He loved the movie 3 Days of the Condor and the Robert Redford character, and so he saw himself as this kind of. He saw himself as legendary, right? He's a very interesting and very strange character, right? So he becomes like in the computer world and computer circle and the hacking, he becomes kind of like this, superstar amongst his peers. But he's diabolical, and he winds up like just fucking with people's lives. Now, there's never any real evidence that he ever stole anything. By the way, he got into the Department of Defense's mainframe. And that's what they used for the basis of the movie War Games. Like, that's Kevin Mitnick's character. And you have this Sun, Jupiter trine in his chart. He's got a Sun in Leo, third house. So, like, this is almost like mutual reception in some ways, right? Sun in the third, which is Gemini's house. Gemini rising, which again is very solar oriented, front facing outwards to the world, right? So he's a trickster. He's a trickster. That's what Kevin, and he's got kind of a mean streak about him. And because there are times where there was this one guy who was his buddy, and they would do all these pranks together. Like, one of the things that Mitnick did, he's also a phone freak. And a phone freak was Phone freak, Phreak. And he would be able to get into these phone lines and route all these calls from different places. He'd have clones of phones. I mean, crazy shit, right? Like stuff you see in movies in the 70s and the 80s where you watch somebody redirect. Like, he could do that stuff. So he and his buddy, I think his last name was DeCillo. They actually went on a tour of the AT&T labs, and they went there to steal manuals, and they got caught. Right? So, like, Kevin Mitnick was fucking diabolical. Let's take a look at his chart. He's got Mercury conjunct Uranus. Look at that, in Virgo. So what's going on between this guy's ears is like happening very, very quickly, like almost like light speed. And he's restless. And Uranus is revolutionary, right? He's revolutionary, radical. And then he's got that Mercury-Pluto conjunction. So he's almost obsessive. Now, again, he's later diagnosed of having Asperger's. Could you make a case for that? Maybe. And it's all in the fourth house, so he's doing it all at home. He's doing all of his hacking out of his home in the fourth house. And then he has Moon Saturn up on the midheaven. And that's a really interesting conjunction. The emotions are almost robotic in some ways. Like, I don't think Kevin Mitnick had the inability to feel. Like, there's this story about his life where he's actually teaching a computer class, and there's this woman who's in his class, but she's not a kid, she's a woman. And this is kind of, back in the day where, people were starting to really come up on computers. And he sends her an email directly to her computer, and it pops up on her screen in the class. And it says, "Would you like to go out with me?" And then she looked at the message, and then she looked up and she looked at him, and he kind of, like this. And then she texted or sent him an email back and said, "Yes." To me, that's Moon Saturn in Aquarius on the midheaven. She eventually marries this woman, by the way, which is mind-blowing, because Kevin Mitnick was anything but the marrying type. But I think in some ways, he was a confused romantic. He was an outlaw, and he actually goes on the run. He gets into so much shit, and he's malevolent. I mean, he's not. Here's what he would do. He would go into a credit card company or a credit network, and he would get all these credit card numbers and information, and he would just store them somewhere. He wouldn't really do anything with them, right? He wouldn't sell them on the dark web. Like, he was more into fucking with people versus doing this for any profit or any plunder. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, was this guy working for the Mossad? Was he selling shit on the side? I couldn't find any evidence of that. However, eventually, after he spends, because he really pissed off, like, the FBI and the DOD, he was in jail for 6 years. 4.5 was for pretrial. He spent, I think, 6 months in solitary confinement because the prosecutor said if he got access to a phone, he could hack into the DOD, and he could whistle into the phone and set off nuclear codes. Well, apparently that's how you do it. Apparently you have to whistle, which I didn't know. But the judge agreed. He spent 4.5 years in pretrial. They did not want this guy on the streets. He was a threat. He eventually gets out, and guess what? He's at it again. Actually, prior to that, this is when they finally get him. He's taunting this Japanese guy who has a computer company in San Diego. And Mitnick was always trying to prove that he was better than anybody else in terms of hacking computers. Like, and he would taunt them. He taunted the wrong guy. And this guy figured out how to get him. And he got him in about 2.5 weeks. And he was actually working with the FBI to nail Kevin Mitnick, who at that time was in Asheville. And he was able to trace back his phone stuff to the research triangle. Right. It was very easy for him to then kind of geolocate where Kevin Mitnick was. So he's this very strange character, but he's a legend in terms of the early days. And you can see it all down here. Right. All down here. Mercury-Uranus conjunction, Mercury-Pluto conjunction. And Chiron and Pisces in the 10th house. And I think he had this incredible sense of lack of self-esteem, right? I think a lot of what he was doing was trying to prove himself, that he was just better than everybody, right? And he couldn't do it on the football field, couldn't do it on the baseball field. Like, that was not his thing. And I think it's what is that, 12, 13, so somewhere around 13 years old, which puts him probably around middle school. That's when something significant happens to him. 12, 13. Something happens to him where he's embarrassed, right? I think it's also like he got bar mitzvah, so that would be around that time as well. And then, I wanted to see where Eris was in this chart. And it's in a conjunction. It's in a wide conjunction with Jupiter. And Eris, of course, is discord. And he's got a sun trine with Eris as well. Look at that. So he's definitely a Discordian. And he's kind of a hero to the early, sort of pioneers and pirates of cyberculture. Like, he would show up in magazines like Boing Boing and what was it, 8200, I think. I think he was somewhere in the pages of Mondo 2000 at one time. So Kevin Mitnick passed away in 2022, and he was he wound up becoming part of a cyber security company, and some dude out of Israel was running it. So I guess they found some talent, and And I guess he had a straight life, right? But he was obsessed, man. And he was obsessed with making people look bad. You know, one time, this is what happened. So one time, I think this guy's name is DeCillo or DeChico, and he couldn't get away from Mitnick. Like even in the 11th house, he's got that Jupiter, and he wants to dominate his friends. And he basically was doing all kinds of crazy shit to him and kind of stalking him. And then one day he pretended to be the IRS, and he called the company this guy worked for, and he talked to the guy who was the head of the company, and basically concocted a story about all these things that he had done with his money and his taxes. And so the CEO of the company called in the office and said, I just got a call from the IRS. And then he's like, okay, I know who that was. And he's like, that was Kevin. Who's Kevin? That's when everything starts to unravel, right? Like he can't just stop. He can't just stop. Like he even turns on his own friends. And it's all down here. Uranus, Mercury, Pluto, right in that 4th house. He's obsessive, right? He's almost manic obsessive. He's an interesting character, fodder for a famous motion picture, a hero to a lot of nerdy, geeky guys who did not fit into the system and somehow wanted to, kind of fight back. And now they had these computer codes and keys in order to do it, level the playing field. There is your star of the day, the famous, now deceased hacker, Kevin Mitnick. All right. I am going to do another star of the day over on locals a bit later. I was going to do it here, but it's a bit controversial. And I'm not sure it would be able to sit here, or if it did sit here, I'm not sure what some of the legal ramifications would be. So if you're on locals, keep an eye out for that. That's coming later your way. In the meantime, come join us over on 15 Minutes of Flame. And we're going to be talking about Antifa. Antifa, here they come. They're getting all dressed up, geared up. They're in training. They got the latest cell phone. They got the latest apps. And they're ready to roll. Thanks for being here. God bless every one of you. Treat each other well, and you have everything you need inside of you. Robert Phoenix, signing off.